I'm very happy to have you. So we're going to spend a few hours. We've advertised that it to be till 4, but I think we will finish a little bit earlier. At the right time, I think we will go on break a bit, just for people to have, you know, lunch or anything, just to have a break, and then we will continue. Okay. Okay. So we can get kicking as people continue to log in. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. I would advise that we do it by the chat. You can also raise your hand by the chat at any time. So, you know, so that I can answer questions at any time, okay, at any time. You can make a comment, you can make a question, and I will share it to everybody, and, you know, we could have an interactive session, okay. So I'm going to take today's training. This is a little bit about me, just so that you know who is coming to deliver the training. And also, if you have any questions from that perspective, I'm very happy to answer them. Okay, so let's go straight. Let me pick up the material. Okay. So as I said, we're going to talk about ISO 27001. Okay. So basically, this is just an introduction into what it's all about, what are the approaches and the steps in implementing it in an organization, and, you know, how to structure the project. So that's what we're going to cover, and then some basic aspects of information security concepts. So that's what we're going to cover today. And as I said, it's an introduction. This is normally a 5-day training. Okay, so this is just to introduce you, and hopefully you will come in for our full training. We've scheduled a virtual training for the lead implementer course, which we will give you the date very soon. Okay, so I'm going to start with the ISO structure. Okay, ISO, which stands for International Standards Organization, it's a global organization that manages and publishes standards. Okay, so there are over 22,000 standards that have been published by ISO, and there are standards in all areas. Okay, all areas. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is one of the standards, the management system standards that ISO publishes. Okay, other management system standards which might be familiar to you, ISO 9000 quality management, which is very common. I think that is the most common management system that has been implemented by organizations. So interesting to note that 27001 has a lot of the ISO 9000 elements, okay? And invariably, Innovare, when we are implementing 27000, we pick on a lot of the 9000, the processes and some of the other things to embed within our implementation of 27001. Other management systems, 14000 environmental management, 45,000 OSHAs, occupational health and safety, which is another very important standard, which is very popular, okay? And in this current health crisis, you would recognize the benefits and the advantages that having this standard brings you as an organization, okay? Then 20,000 is service management. Okay, so IT service management. 22,000 food safety. 22,301 business continuity management, another very important one which has come to the fore with this current crisis that we have. Innovare also offers training in 22,301. And then, as I said, what we're looking at today is 27,001. And then there's supply chain security management, 28,000. These are all management systems, okay? And there are others, there's still others, okay? And as we go along, I'll break down what we mean by a management system, okay? Now, the focus of ISO in developing these management systems is trying to create a well-structured, integrated environment in your organization, okay? So once you implement one standard, one management system standard, you can easily incorporate any other standards, any other management systems easily together. What we call so to create what we call an integrated management system, okay? So these aspects are common to all the management systems, i.e. leadership and commitment, the policy of the management system, the objectives, documented information, the internal audit, okay? I keep saying that, you know, there's this focus on, you know, financial processes from an internal audit perspective. So most people, when we mention internal audit, then it's all about finances. No. Internal audit is about processes, okay? It's about things that we do, okay? It's about ensuring that the activities are being done as documented or as expected, okay? So all these areas have to be audited. And the whole point of bringing them all together, integrating all these management systems, is to enable the auditor manage them as a single environment, not that we are going to audit them individually and that then there's a different auditor for each. No, the feature of audit is that the auditor should have the capability, the capacity to audit all processes, okay? And having a framework really does make it easy and simple, and it creates this common view. This concept of common view is incredibly important, okay? And that's what ensures that organizations, all their processes are smooth and structured. And in fact, that is one of the most important advantages in implementing a management system, okay? You have all the key departments, you know, risk management, compliance, audits, all the key assurance departments, assurance functions, they have the ability to be able to look at the same thing, okay? Hitherto, some of the accusations against audit is that they are police, okay? Now, how does that idea come up from? The main reason is that because there's no framework, there's no management system. So when the auditor is coming to audit, they have their idea, their perspective on how you should be doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, you as an auditee, So in this case, it could be the IT manager, okay? The IT manager also has their understanding of how they should be running their department. Then there's conflict, okay? Because both of them come from different perspectives. And that causes a lot of conflict, okay? But if you have a management system in place, a framework, a standard, which has been implemented, which both functions, were part of the project, then you have harmony. Then instead of conflict, instead of this argument and trying to prove that what the process that I want you to do is the right one, is completely thrown out and eliminated, okay? And what results is a joint effort by the auditor and the auditee to improve the process that is being implemented or is being used. So we will see and discuss later about improvement. Improvement is a very, very critical aspect of ISO management systems, okay? And I'll talk more about it, how the whole approach of implementing and managing a management system supports improvement, okay? Another word for improvement is maturity, okay? So we need to have the approach of being able to mature the processes and the activities that we have implemented and ensure that it's all well structured. Management review and then continual improvement, as I said. Okay, so these are the common structures of all the ISO standards. And as I said, once you've implemented one, then it is easier to add more to it because the management system aspect has already been implemented. Okay, so it's just the specifics of the particular management system that you're implemented is the only thing that you need to add. Okay. So this is how the 27,000 family, the documents that are in the 27,000 family. Okay. Now, if you've noticed, all certifications of the management systems is one. So 27,001, 9,001, 45,001. Okay. You certify on the 27,001 and on the one, because those are the requirements for the management system. Okay. So that's what you certify on. All the other documents are supporting documents, which adds a little bit more information in a specific aspect of that management system. Okay, so the key ones are the ones in red. Okay, so 27006 is the certification organization requirements. So those are the requirements of the company, of the certification company that is coming to certify you. Okay, to are embedded in 27,006. Then there's an additional document, 27,009, which just gives some added guidelines of the specific application of 27,001. Okay, but the training that we are going to experience today, and if and when we join the full 27 lead implementer, covers all the documents in red. Okay, so the contents within those documents are embedded within the training. So bits of it, the main bits of those documents are embedded in the training that we are coming to do. Okay, so 27,002 is the code of practice. So those are where the controls live. I'm sure some of you might have heard of the 114 controls of 27001. Okay, they are outlined in 27002 in detail. Okay, what they are, how you can implement them. Okay, 27003 is an implementation guide as to typically what are some of the things that you need to be doing when you're implementing the standard. Metrics is 27004. What are some of the things that you need to measure? Okay, then 27005 is risk management. Okay, and there's a training, so there's a lead risk manager certification under 27005, and that enables you to do the risk assessment, which we're going to touch on slightly. Okay, and then 27008 is the audit guide, how you go about audit it. Okay, and then at the bottom we have industry guides. Okay, now the 27002 codes of practice, the controls that we find there are what we would describe as generic. Okay, so I will explain it later on, but those are controls that the standard feels that every organization needs those controls if they are doing the associated activity, which I will explain. Okay, every one of them would have to implement those generic controls. Okay, the industry guides looks at specific requirements depending on the sector. Okay, so we have looked at the generic controls, but because your organization is in telecoms, there are additional controls specific to that industry, which you can find in 27011. Okay, so it just adds on to 27002. Then 27799 is health. Okay, so there are other areas coming up, specific areas. So there's 27019, which is on cloud security. There's 2732, which is on cyber security. Okay, so there are various specific areas, guidelines for specific areas continually being developed. Okay. Yes, Martin, we will be sharing the recorded session. It will be made available. Okay, as the whole webinar. I think that we will put it on YouTube and on our website. Okay, so this is the history of ISO 27001. Okay, it started as a British standard back in 1990 as a British standard. Okay, you can imagine that a lot of the standards came out of the British. Okay, you know how they are very prim and proper, very straight, everything is. So a lot of the things that we are using, ITIL, for instance, is from Britain. Okay, Prince 2 is from Britain. Okay, all these are very specific, very organized methodologies that are used in, ITIL is used for service management. Prince 2 is a project management approach. Okay, so it started as BS 7799 back in those days. Okay, and in 2000, it was adopted by ISO, and the initial name was 17799. Okay, so some of the old folks might remember it as 17799. In fact, the first time that I came to in contact is when it was as 17799. Okay. Then it has been developed all over the years, and in 2007, they reorganized the family and renamed it as 27000. Okay, and then the family started. Okay, so periodically these standards are updated. So the current version is 2013. Okay, the previous version was 2005. Okay, so periodically, so if you notice, the standards have the years beside them. Okay, so if you look, so this one is 27001 semicolon 2013 to indicate the version of the management system that we are using. Okay, and it's expected that in 2023 we'll have an updated version. Okay. So yes, Theodora, yes, we do offer the certifications in the red separately, as I said, yes. So just to further explain, the ones that you can get is the lead risk manager, the 27005, and then the lead auditor. Okay, so under 27,000, there are actually 4 separate certifications that you can do. It's the lead implementer, 27001, lead implementer, then lead auditor, 27001, lead auditor, then lead risk manager, 27005, lead risk manager, and then lead cybersecurity manager, which is 27,032. Okay, so all those certifications, yes, we do offer the training and the certification, the exam and everything. Another question. With the slides we shared, yes, we will share the webinar. So the whole webinar will be available for you to look at. Okay. Now the questions are coming in thick and fast. Can you complete? No, you can ask questions anytime. Anytime. I think I would prefer the questions coming anytime. Well, but however, within the presentation, you will realize that I'll come to question time. So if we prefer, maybe we can center the questions during those question times. Okay. Okay. So let's go on. Okay. So this is how the standard looks like. Okay. So this is how the document, the actual document from ISO looks like. You can actually get this document from Ghana Standards Authority. Okay, so Ghana Standards Authority is the reps for ISO, or since Ghana is a signatory to ISO, it is Ghana Standards Authority that represents us as a country at the ISO level. Okay, so all the standards, you can buy it in CDs from Ghana Standards Board. Okay. Okay. So this is how as I said, the documents look like. Okay. Okay. So let's kick on. I think we've had some questions already. I don't know whether there are any quick questions that I can answer before we kick off. Okay. Okay, PECB is a certification organization. Okay, so they provide the certification. So when as an organization or as an individual, you want to certify, then you can certify with PECB. There are other certification organizations. SGS is one. Bureau Veritas is another. TUV is there. BSI are there. Okay, so these are all certification companies that are authorized to certify the individual with the lead implementer or lead auditor, or to certify the organization with the standard. Okay. IEC is another organization a little bit similar to ISO, which focuses on electronic, IT related, electricals, and those areas of the thing. So they are also a global organization. And some of the standards are shared between ISO and IEC. Okay, so some of them would have the IEC ISO. It just shows that IEC also shares in providing thoughts to developing that standard. Okay. Yes, Innovare does both, prepares organizations and prepares individuals for the exams. Okay. Okay. So let's crack on. Okay. Going to look at the ISMS, what the ISMS stands for. Okay. So the ISMS stands for Information Security Management System. Okay. And basically it consists of policies, procedures, guidelines, associated resources, activities, collectively managed by the organization in pursuit of protecting its information assets. Now, to define the ISMS, it's a systematic approach for establishing, implementing, operating, monitoring, reviewing, maintaining, and improving an organization's information security to achieve business objectives. It is based on a risk assessment and the organization's risk acceptance levels designed to effectively treat and manage risk. Okay, so basically, it's a management system. And when we say management system, we are talking about the people, the structure, and the processes within an organization. Okay, so your management system to manage the organization would be the CEO with all the various positions which we see within the organizational chart. So that is the people that occupy those positions in the structure. So the structure are how the departments are structured, where they report to, and things like that. And within each business unit, there are processes, okay? So everything that we do should be done as a process, okay? As a process, okay? Is ISMS a technical or operational focus? It is more of an operational focus, okay? So a management system is about management, okay? It's not about the technology. It's about managing your requirements for information security. Technology are amongst the assets within your environment that needs protecting. Okay, so an ISMS is not a technology, focused setup. Okay, it is a management. Okay, so sometimes I've heard organizations say that, oh, our IT is not much. It doesn't matter at all. You still need an ISMS, because from an ISMS perspective, we are looking at information in all forms. Okay, not only so, you can even have an organization that just has laptops, no applications, to say nothing. Okay, everybody just has a laptop and they're using. You critically need an ISMS to manage your information. Okay, to manage how to protect your information. You might not have an extensive information system, but you definitely have information. Because without information, what are you doing? How are you running your I mean, there isn't anything that you can do without information, okay? So that needs to be put into perspective, okay? What is the correlation between ISACA products and ISO product management? Well, ISO is a standard for implementing management systems within an organization. So it's a certifiable standard, okay? ISACA products are just competency level products, and they are focused on the individual, not on the organization, okay? So if I, as an individual, I want to certify, then I can go and do the Certified Information Security Manager. That is me personally, okay? Similarly, from an ISO perspective, I can go and certify as a lead implementer, okay? But ISACA does not certify the organization, okay, which ISO does, okay, the environment, okay? So ISO enables you to certify your environment. So that's what Bank of Ghana wants all its industry to do, to certify your environment, to show that your controls are of, global standard. Okay. Yes, anybody can take the certification. There's no prerequisites to take any of the certifications. Okay. So as long as you can understand, study, and prepare and pass the exam, then that's fine. After that, there are professional requirements to enable you to certify. You must have worked for a few years. You must have certified certain professional requirements. Okay. ISO goes through a process approach. Okay. Some of you might have heard of PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. Okay. It's a process approach to ensure improvement within an organization. Okay, so that your processes, you use them, you check them, you audit them, you look at how they are effective and efficient, and then you improve them, and then you go back and look at your environment to see if that process is still relevant. Okay, so Plan, Do, Check, Act is an integral, fundamental approach within ISO 27001 and all the other management systems. Okay, so the planning is your initial scoping, your risk assessment, your defining of your policies, your procedures and your standards, the designing of your processes, all the definitions of the roles and responsibilities, all that are within the planning stage. So once you've designed all that, then we implement them. Okay, so you might have identified that one of the controls that you need is antivirus, for instance. Okay, and that could have come about as a result of your risk assessment, that you've identified that there are viruses, which can cause significant damage to your information system. Okay, so the expected control is antivirus. Okay, so the identification of the risk and identification of the required control is under the planning stage. Then in the do stage, we actually implement and start to use the antivirus. Okay, we start to use it. So we start ensuring that the definition files are being downloaded, that, that it's working basically. Okay. So at a point, we audit. That's the check phase. We audit, we check whether it is doing what we expect it to do. Okay. Now, in the plan stage, we would have outlined exactly what we expect the antivirus to do. What is it supposed to do for us? Okay, what are the things that we expect it to control? Okay, that would be outlined in the plan stage. So in the check phase, we'll be checking whether it is doing it. Okay, so after we do the check, then any improvement that we can do to make it better, we would implement. We would roll it out in the act phase. Okay, so all improvements, all corrective actions that we notice are done in the act phase. Now, these steps, we expect that typically it should take you about 12 months to go through all the plan, do, check, act. So within a 12-month interval, you will be back. You would have finished act, and then we are back at the planning stage. Okay. Now, at this point in the planning stage, you are no longer coming to establish the ISMS. You've already established it. Okay. So the planning aspect that you're coming to do is a risk assessment. You are coming to assess the risks because in the 1 year that has elapsed, your environment might have changed. Your market might have changed. Your legislative environment might have changed. Your regulatory environment might have changed. You yourself, your internal environment, your products, your services might have shifted. Okay, your customer needs, customer demands might have changed. Okay, so that would require another risk assessment because things have changed and the controls that you have in place might not be addressing what exactly the environments, the controls, the risks that those controls were designed for. Okay, so we do a risk assessment. We look at the changes of the risks, whether there's been changes of the risks or new risks, and then we go back and then we continue with the do, check, act, and we go back. Okay. So we expect that, that's why we expect that on an annual basis, every year you would need to do a risk assessment. Okay. So we will do a risk assessment when there's a significant change or 12 months. Okay. So with the current crisis that we are in, that is a significant change. That is a significant change to any environment. Okay. So, when things settle, I would expect that companies, organizations will need to do a full risk assessment to see whether the changes has affected its operations, its processes, and whether the controls are still effective in the light of the environmental changes that has occurred, which would have affected your risk profile, your risk landscape. Okay, so this is a very simple high-level view of a process. Okay, all the processes, it has an input. There are sets of activities within the process, and then there's an output. Okay, so this is quite important. Okay, the process approach. Okay, because everything that we do in an organization is done as a result of a process. Okay, and the maturity of an organization is determined by the nature and how the processes are underlined. Okay, so we will look at the capability maturity model a little bit later on, which I will talk more about the processes and how it is so important to focus on them. To be honest, the vast majority of the possible risks, a lot of the risks are embedded in the processes. Okay, the process. And remember, the assets that you have, whether it's an application, a laptop, everything, some of the things are part of the resources of a process. Okay, are part of the resources of a process. Okay, so it would be a bit lacking if we just focus on the assets and leave out the processes. Okay, that is, you've left out a vast area of possible risks. Okay, so it's very important that we have the processes in perspective. So one of the things that we do when we are implementing is that we do a lot of interrogation about the processes. Okay, some organizations don't have their processes mapped. It is important to have processes mapped. Okay, it is not a mandatory requirement, but it's a strong indicator of the maturity of the organization when you have your processes properly mapped. Okay, because at the end of the day, we don't want people undertaking processes in a non-standardized manner. The whole point is that we want processes to be standardized, i.e., everybody who does it will do it in the same way every single time that it's done. Okay, and this also enables audit to effectively audit it, because once it's been mapped, it's been documented, it's been approved by management, then this is the way that it has to be done. And this is incredibly important. Okay, it's incredibly important. And those are one of the important outcomes of having a management system. Is the structure that it brings, is the organization that it brings, and its ability to ensure that we have a complete, standardized, well-organized, mutually agreed upon way of doing things. Okay. Okay. Now, this is the structure of the standard itself. Okay, so as I said, we've looked at the common areas earlier on. So this just puts it into perspective. Okay, some of the things that are implemented as part of the management system. Okay, so what we are seeing here is common to all the management systems that we've mentioned, except the Annex A, the control objectives and controls. Okay, that is specific to 27001. Okay, so we will be breaking down all this as we go along. Okay. Okay, so let's start by some of the things that creates the structure. Okay, that creates the the organized approach that we need in implementing, in managing an information system. Okay. Now, one of the important perspectives of information security is the fact that it needs to be aligned with the business. It needs to be aligned with what the organization does. It needs to be aligned with the context of the organization. Okay, we call that the top-down approach. Okay, hitherto, most organizations were using a bottom-up approach to information security. Now, the bottom-up approach is simply a focus on the technology. Okay, so it could be the IT manager just implementing controls. Okay, we need a firewall. I think a firewall is important, so we implement. Yes, viruses are there, so we implement. Hey, if someone's coming to hack me, I need to be able to know. Then you implement intrusion detection. Hey, our routers, we need to secure them. Okay, so maybe you look at the configuration and things. So the implementation of information security is focused solely on the technology. That is the bottom-up approach, solely on the technology. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not the best. That is not the approach that would really give you the levels of security that are required. Okay. Because that approach leaves out a lot of areas. Just one area that it leaves out are the people, okay? And this brings to mind one of the concepts, the facts that we need to have in our mind, that information security is not a technology problem. It's a social problem. It's a people problem, okay? Again, it is not a technology problem, okay? The technology is there. It is the human beings that misuse it, okay? So if your focus is just on the technology and not on the people, then you are missing out a lot of your risks, the opportunities to incidents and things like that, okay? So embedded around the people are the organization. So the organizational activities. And as I said, the processes. So all those things are left out if your approach to information security is bottom up. Okay. So we need a top-down approach. We need to start from the makeup of the business. Information security is a support to the business. Okay. The focus of information security is to ensure that the organizational objectives, the business objectives are achieved. Okay, we need to achieve the business objectives. Okay, so if we do a bottom-up approach, then the end result could be that certain vital business activities could be hampered, could be, curtailed. Okay. So for example, more and more social media is becoming a very, very critical, vital tool. Okay. And we all know, social media, you use the internet, the web. We also know the amounts of risks that can emanate from the web, okay, from the internet, okay. So if you use a bottom-up approach, then it might result in the IT manager blocking some of the things that, hey, no, these things will bring viruses, you go and block them and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that the business, your marketing department needs it to do its work, okay. So from a bottom-up approach, you will not have that perspective. You will not have that view of what your marketing people are doing to be able to decide on, how to, manage it. No, you're just blocking, okay? But from a top-down approach, we are looking at what the organization does. We realize that the marketing guys need to use Facebook, need to use Instagram, all those things, I mean, there are so many other lead generation strategies using the internet, okay? It's a vital tool. So the focus and the perspective of information security would be, how do we reduce the risks of marketing using these mechanisms, these internet-based resources to a manageable level, okay? To a manageable level, to acceptable levels of security, okay? That should be the perspective of information security, and that can only be achieved if we are doing a top-down approach. So the top-down approach starts with understanding the context of the organization, okay? And the context of the organization, understand that what makes up that organization, okay? So we look at understanding its interested parties. We will look at that, determining the scope of the information security, determining, so what are some of the products and services, and all that, what are the main processes, the department. It just brings out the understanding of the organization, okay? So that it also forms an input into your risk assessment, okay? Then we need to look at leadership and management commitment, okay? Again, this is a very critical component. If your top management are not on the same page in setting up an information security management system, forget it, it will not work. Without their commitment, things will be very, very difficult, okay? In fact, next to impossible, okay? And continually, in various projects that we have undertaken, it is just, continuous. It always happens, okay? If the management or the CEO or the director general takes a very passive view to what the project that is done, we realize that you have a lot of difficulty, okay? Once and the CEO is on board and is supportive, you realize how smooth the project becomes, how easy it is to achieve some of the objectives of the project of implementing an ISMS. Remember that whenever you are trying to manage risk, okay, you are going to affect the culture of the organization, okay? The culture, the behaviors of the organization is very much affected. So in trying to implement an ISMS, you are going to need a change in their behaviors, a change in the culture of the organization. That can only be achieved if the CEO is leading, okay? If top management is leading, okay? Because top management sets the tone of the culture of the organization, of the behaviors, of the observance, of the controls, of compliance is set from the top, okay? So I think that we need to look at strategic orientation, as I said, okay? We need to understand where the organization is going and ensuring that your information security controls and processes that you're implementing is aligned with the organization. We do not want information security to come and become an obstacle, okay, a hindrance to business activities, okay? That is definitely not what the objective is, okay? It must be an enabler, okay? Once we implement risk management, should add value, okay? Implementing information security should add value, not take away value, Okay, so it is very, very important that that perspective is continually in focus and is I mean, there's a deliberate focus in achieving that, in ensuring that that is true. Okay. Another requirement is the fact that we need resources available. Okay. There are a lot of resources that are needed. Management has to make it available. Okay. And then communication. We need to be able to communicate. Okay. One of the ways of management communicating to the organization is through policies. So policies are management tools that gives us management direction, how management wants things to go. Okay, that's what policies are. It gives management intent, direction. Okay, so it's very important that those policies are properly, formulated and properly communicated with the authority, the mandate, and the clout behind it. Okay. There are a lot of other communications that are required. Risks, for instance, must be effectively communicated. Okay. We need to have proper messaging to interested parties. As I said, we will look at interested parties a little bit later on. Okay. So a major aspect about information security is having effective communication channels with everybody that are impacted by the organization. So that is actually the definition of an interested party. Anybody who is impacted by the organization. There is channels of communication existing, proper channels and proper authorized messaging being delivered. Okay. Okay. So as I said, the policy, we expect top management. So in clause 5.2 of 27,001, top management shall establish an information security policy. Remember, legal language. So the standard, the language in the standard is designed around legal language. So shall means that you have to do it. Okay, it has to be done. It's a requirement which the auditor would expect to see. If you do not observe a shall, then that is a non-conformity. Okay, and depending on what it comes in, the non-conformity might result in you not being able to gain your certification. Okay, so top management shall establish an information security policy that is appropriate to the purpose of the organization, includes information security objectives, or provides the framework of setting information security objectives, includes a commitment to satisfy applicable requirements related to information security, and includes a commitment to continual improvement of the information security management system. The information security policy shall be available as documented information, be communicated within the organization, and be available to interested parties as appropriate. Okay, so this is what the clause says. And as an implementer, we need to ensure that all these provisions within this clause is fulfilled. Okay, so this is the policy that establishes the information security management system. Okay, so this is a high-level policy statement. So clause 5.1, which focuses on organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities. top management shall ensure that the responsibilities and authorities for roles relevant to information security are assigned and communicated. Top management shall assign the responsibility and authority for A, ensuring that information security management system conforms to the requirements of this international standard, and reporting on the performance of the information security management system to top management. Okay. So these are organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities, which we expect that in any organization, roles, responsibilities are outlined. Okay. So we expect your marketing function, who is responsible? You have a head. Your finance function, who is responsible? You have a head. Okay. So these are all sections, departments, units, functions of the organization that needs to be allocated responsible people to manage it. And it's the same with information security. Okay. So basically what this clause is saying, that you need to set up a unit. You need to have somebody who is responsible for setting up the management system, managing it, and reporting the performance of the management system to top management. Okay. So it comes as what we need to be able to do. Okay, quick question we have here. Who will be accountable here? Is it management or function heads? Okay. Now, if we're talking about accountable of the information security activities, okay, then it is the function head. So the head of information security who will be responsible that all the things that we are going to talk about, they are responsible to deliver on it. Okay, he has, as head, is accountable for that, and he or she reports to top management as to the performance of the ISMS, of the information security management system. Okay, so when we appoint a head of department, they are responsible for the functions within that department. Okay. Okay. So clause 6 is about planning. So as I said, if you recall the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, okay, the plan, what are the activities within the plan? And I mentioned that the risk assessment, risk management is a very key fundamental process which determines what controls we need to have in place. Okay, so we need to determine the risks. Okay, now in doing a risk assessment, you also need to be able to determine the opportunities. Okay, so risk management is not always about bad things. Okay, I mean, I recall some comments by board members, top management about, oh, risk management, oh, you're always thinking about bad things that will happen. You only think about, that's all your job, you are evil, So sometimes that is the perspective and understanding of a lot of people about risk management. Okay. But we continue to forget, and if we do not set up our risk management processes properly, we lose out on identifying opportunities. Okay. This is not a risk management course, so I will not delve much into it. We would do a risk management course. I mean, as I said, we do training in 31,000, for instance. That is the standard for enterprise risk management. Okay. So once you are doing your risk management properly, you will identify opportunities. You might even identify new business services, products that the organization can develop. Okay, it is not only risks. Okay, then we need to do so. Yes, part of the risk management is the risk assessment. You assess, you identify the risks, then you decide on the risk treatment. Okay, then we also look at the information security objectives. Okay, so all this is part of the planning phase of the in the establishment of the information security management system. Okay, we will be looking at it in a little bit. Then we also notice support as one of the clauses. So that's clause 7. Okay, so what are some of the things that we need to do to support the successful running management of the management system? So if we're going to have a well operating management system, these are some of the things that we need to have in place. Okay, we need to have resources. So there's a number of resources that we need to have. Okay, people, obviously computers, we need tools, we might need vehicles, you know, all these are resources that we need to have to be able to successfully, implement and manage the ISMS. Okay. We need competence. We need people who are competent. Okay. And that is a whole area on it in itself, you know, determining competence, how do you manage competence and all, and, you know, all that. So the roles that we outline, and in appointing people to occupy those roles and have the responsibilities that they have under those roles, we expect some level of competence within those people. Okay, because it has been determined that if somebody is not competent, then it gives rise to a lot of risk. Okay, the person might make mistakes in their function. Okay, and in actual fact, the highest cause of downtime in an organization is error, is mistakes caused by people at the operational level. Okay, so that could have been caused by lack of competence, or maybe tiredness, or, you know, negligence. Okay, those are so competence all includes, you know, those perspectives. We also need to have awareness. Okay, the objective of awareness is behavioral change. Okay, so the ways that we achieve behavioral change is through an awareness program. An awareness program's focus is not to let people know. It is to ensure people do. Okay, knowing is the means in which we get people to do. Okay, so when we embark on an awareness program, it is after we've identified some of the undesirable behaviors within the organization, and we want to change it. Okay, so as I said earlier, you know, one of the side impacts is the change of culture. There will be a cultural change whenever an ISMS is implemented. There will be a cultural change. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so it's something that comes along with risk management. Okay. So we need to achieve, so we need the awareness program to achieve the behavioral change. I mentioned a little bit about communication, that we need to communicate, ensure that the messaging is right to the targeted audience. And then we have documentation as part of the requirements. Now, I always like to put this into perspective, at the fact that the documentation is not what makes the implementation. However, the documentation is critical evidence of having implemented the ISMS. Okay, so in some implementations of ISO 27001, some implementers just focus on the documentation, prepare all the documentation, and that's it. No. You know, more important is that the controls, the activities must be set up, processes must be set up and working. Those processes, controls are supported by the documentation. Okay, so we need a documentation, but more importantly, we need the processes and the controls well in place and being managed and measured. Okay. So in managing the document, we have a document lifecycle that we need to ensure that is true. You know, it is true of the organization. Okay, so the life cycle, a life cycle is from birth to death. So we create a document, we uniquely identify the document. So we need to have a unique identifier. Okay, so within each organization, we need to have a proper naming convention for each document. Okay, we need to classify and secure the document. Okay, now classification is important. Classification enables us to understand the level of effort required to protect that document. Okay, so if something is top, how do I say, top secret, it means that this document is critical to the organization. We need to put maximum effort in protecting that document. If at the lower level, we will also recognize that some documents could be public domain documents, which would mean that we don't need to even protect those documents. Okay, so there's no need in putting any effort in protecting those documents. Okay, so the classification level, you could have 3 levels, 4 levels, 5 levels. It's purely up to the organization, okay, to decide how many levels that you want to implement this way. It's purely up to the organization. Okay, so but we will say that minimum should be 3, top secret, proprietary, public domain. Okay, and as I said, this is critically important to enable us fully understand how much effort we need to be able to put into that document in trying to protect it. Every document will be modified at a point in time. Okay, so, policies, every document might be updated. So that's the modification. Okay, if it's modified, it needs to go through an approval process to approve the document and make it acceptable for use. Okay, when that is done, we will need to distribute it. Okay, who are the people that should receive that document? Okay, so for each document, a distribution list will be attached. We also need to outline the adequate use of the document. Okay, and then when the document is no longer in use, it has to be archived. We have laws in how long documents that are no longer in use should be archived. Okay, in Ghana, it's 6 years. Okay, so you cannot destroy the document unless, you know, according to law, 6 years has elapsed. Then disposal come in. How do you dispose of it? Securely. Okay, so this is a typical document life cycle that, you know, has to be documented and has to be implemented. Okay. Clause 8.1 describes the operational planning and control requirements of, you know, the ISMS. So the organization shall plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet information security requirements and to implement the actions determined to address risks and opportunities. The organization shall also implement plans to achieve information security objectives determined and plans to achieve them. The organization shall keep documented information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. Okay, so that is the key statement about the documented information. You need to have it to the extent necessary that the organization has confidence in the processes that you have set up. Okay, so as I said, to enable me to have confidence in a process, I would expect it to be mapped, that there's a process map, process documentation that goes with that process. That gives me confidence that the process is being carried out as planned, as expected. Okay, so that if today a new person is appointed to that role, they can pick up the process documentation and know what to do. Okay, that is the value of documented information. The organization shall control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. The organization shall ensure that outsourced processes are determined and controlled. Okay, so these are the activities, the expected outcomes that we expect from the operational planning and control perspective. Okay, as outlined by the standard. Okay. So as part of the planning and control, we have 8.2 and 8.3, risk assessment and risk treatment. Okay, we need to do a risk assessment to enable us to identify risks. Okay, once we identify risks, we need to have a treatment plan, which will enable us to know how we are going to reduce those risks to acceptable levels. Okay. I mean, I'm sure we all recognize, we all know that it is impossible to eliminate a risk. You cannot eliminate a risk. So the language is that we are reducing risk to a level that is acceptable to us as being the organization. Okay, so when we talk about risk acceptance levels, then that is what we are referring to. Okay, the level of acceptable risk. Okay. Clause 9 talks about monitoring and review. Okay, we need to be able to monitor the management system. We need to be able to monitor all the things that we have implemented. The controls, our processes, solutions, everything. Okay. So some of the things that we look at one, monitoring and review of detection and security event prevention procedures. Okay, so we need to, any event that happens, anything that happens, we need to be able to monitor and know. That is called event management. Okay. Number 2 says regular review of the effectiveness of the ISMS, taking into account the feedback and suggestions of the interested parties. Okay. So as I said, this is part of the review, the check phase, the audit phase. Okay. I mean, how effective is the ISMS? Is it being effective? Is it meeting its objectives? Okay. And in doing so, we need to ensure that we have feedback channels from interested parties. As I said, we will discuss the interested parties in more details. Okay. But we need to ensure that we are getting feedback and their comments as to how we can make those controls better. Okay. 3, measurement of the effectiveness of the processes and the controls. Okay. So we need to put key performance indicators in place, key risk indicators in place, and ensure that we are measuring those indicators. 4, review of risk assessments and risk treatments. Okay, so risk assessments has to be a continuous process. Okay, so even though annually we'll do a risk assessment, the process of responding to whatever happens and juxtaposing it to the control is all part of the monitoring of the risk management requirements. Then 5, conducting the internal audits. Okay. And then 6, management review and update of the security plans. So the management review is effectively a management meeting, a meeting in which the audit reports are discussed, recommendations made, okay, and action plans are approved so that anything that needs to be done to mitigate identified risks is done. Okay. I've spoken a lot about internal audits, and it is a key function to enable us ensure that the controls, the processes that we have implemented are actually doing what they are supposed to do. Okay, so we expect that a proper internal audit function is established, and they are fully, they are competent and have the right capacity. The audit criteria in this is the various control objectives and the policy documents. Okay, so the policy documents form audit criteria. Okay, so we audit based on the policy documents and the process documents that have been established. Okay, I've mentioned about management review. As I said, the audit report goes to management review for consideration. Okay, so the other things that they consider at the management review is A, status of actions from previous management reviews. Okay, so any action recommendation from a previous management review, we would look at the status at the subsequent management review. Changes in external and internal issues that are relevant to the information security management system. Okay, so I mentioned in the context that there are internal, external issues that we need to consider. Okay, the changes, are we capturing the changes? Okay, then C, feedback on the information security performance, including trends in non-conformities and corrective action. So we need to look at are we identifying non-conformities, and how are we undertaking our corrective action? Okay, sorry, I've moved. Okay. Then monitoring and measurement results, audit results, fulfillments of information security objectives. Okay, information security objectives are outlined at the very beginning, and it's given by management. Management has to outline that what are our information security objectives? Why are we doing this? Okay, so it could be that, oh, we want to comply with regulators' directive. We want to improve our services and products. We want to mitigate risks, okay? We want to bring trust amongst our customers, okay? We want to be seen as the most secure organization on the market. These are all examples of security objectives, okay? And as we report to management, that has to be measured and that has to be reported to management as to where are we in the achievement of those goals, okay? Then feedback from interested parties, results of risk assessment and status of risk treatment plan, and then opportunities for continual improvement. Okay, so these are things that management would look at and consider within the management meetings that they are going to have. Okay. Then the outputs of the management review shall include decisions related to continual improvement, opportunities and needs for the changes to the information security management system. So the outputs is what are we going to do about the identified issues? Okay, those are some of the key things that we are management has to look at. Okay. Okay. Then improvements. So as I said, we need to look at ensuring that we are improving, continuously improving. Okay. And whenever we identify a non-conformity, then some actions have to take place alongside, okay? And those are some of the improvement opportunities, the things that would improve the information security management system, okay? So any change to the process, to the, I think somebody has their mic unmuted. Can you mute your mic, please? Please mute your microphone. Okay. So all these are things that result in improvement, in maturity of the management system. And it's very, very important, you know, that we have continual improvement. Okay, we get better. Okay. Then we mentioned Annex A. Annex A is the list of security objectives and controls. Yeah. There are 114 as proposed by the 27001. Okay, they are listed in Annex A briefly, and they are in more detail in the document, the Code of Practice, which is 27002. Okay, so Annex A and 27002 are the same thing. It's just that the 27002 is far more detail than the Annex A. Annex A just gives a very very brief, not enough for you to be able to implement. Just the control objective and a description of the control, that's all. Okay, so you need the 27002 to be able to fully understand the implementation requirements of that control. Okay, and as I said, ISO 27000 recommends 114 generic controls. Okay, those controls are linked to activities. Once you are doing that activity, then it's expected that the controls must be done. So for example, software development. If you do internal software development, there are controls that go along with it, okay? If you don't do it, then the controls that you need to implement in your environment will not be all the 114, okay? So the 114, as I said, generic, seen as required by all organizations, and seen as minimum requirements. Okay. So these are what we call the domains, which the Annex A covers, and which the 27002 covers in detail. Okay. So, I mean, you can just go and buy the 27002 for details of all these domains and the controls. So if you notice, we have the control domain, information security policies. There are 2 controls there. Organization of information security, there are 7 controls, okay? So if you total all the controls on the right, then you get a 114. So let's briefly look at the control domains and what they cover. Okay. So information security policies is the fact that you need policies in all areas. Organization of information security goes to the formation of a unit that is responsible for information security, okay, and how it relates to other activities, both internal and external. Human resource security is the controls that we need to manage the people, okay? Things like background screening, background checks is embedded in human resource security. Then the next domain is asset management, okay? How do we manage our information assets? The need that we need to inventory them, give them owners, identify them, and things like that. Okay. The next domain is access control. Okay. Access control is seen as the bedrock of information security. Okay. It determines who should get access to what. Okay. Very, very important aspect of information security. The next is cryptography. It's a new domain in the recent edition. These days, cryptography is seen as a minimum requirement. You have to encrypt data at rest, data in transit, okay, as much as possible, okay? The cost of encryption has dropped. So hitherto, we needed to do a cost-benefit analysis before we did encryption because of the cost of encryption. But these days, encryption comes at a manageable cost, okay? We need to encrypt everything, okay, as much as possible. Then the physical and environmental security, okay? So the physical security of our premises, of our offices, et cetera, et cetera. Environmental security is looking at your power, utility power, things like that, where you place your equipment and things like that. Operations security, okay, big area. Operations security looks at the IT operations and how do we ensure that all those operations are being done properly. Okay, so some of them are like change management, capacity management, release management, backup, all those things are come under operations, IT operations. Okay. Then communications security is looking at your network security, your all the types of network and things, all things related to communications from a physical perspective. The next domain is system acquisition, development, and maintenance. Okay, so how do you acquire your system? Do you buy or do you develop yourself? Okay, system acquisition also includes hardware. Okay, not only software, hardware. Okay, so your RFP process, things like that, all fall under system acquisition, development, and maintenance. Then supplier relationships. It is another new it's another new area, relatively new, and it came with the current edition. It is focuses on the fact that these days every organization basically has outsourced something. You have suppliers, you have outsourced partners, you have, we always have somebody doing something for us. Okay, so it is important to be able to manage the relationship as much as possible and ensure that what you are supposed to get, you are getting. Also, your interests are being managed and secured, okay? One of those key interests is the condition of your data, okay? So we might outsource a process, but we do not outsource the responsibility, the ownership of the data, okay? So it's something that we need to ensure that at all times, we are able to ensure that the outsource partner is doing the right thing. Then we have information security incident management. Okay, how do we manage incidents that crop up? Okay, what is the response procedure? Okay, another very important aspect of information security management. Okay, and in fact, it's the key measure to indicate the effectiveness of your whole ISMS. So if we want to measure whether you've implemented your ISMS quite well and it's being operated well, we will look at the incidents. If the quantum, the number of incidents are reducing, then that is an indicator that yes, we've set up a pretty good information security management system. Then we look at information security aspects of business continuity management. Okay. So that is also a new perspective. It's a reduced focus on business continuity management. And that is because, so previous editions of ISO 27001 had full business continuity management within it. But subsequently, we have another standard for business continuity management, which is ISO 22301. Okay, relatively new. That focuses on business continuity management. Okay, so we no longer have business continuity as a requirement under 27001. It is separated to another management standard. Okay, so under ISO 27001, we only look at the information security aspects of business continuity, meaning that when you evoke business continuity, we expect that you have information security controls still operating so that there's business continuity of the information security control. Okay. And then the last one is compliance. How do we ensure that we are complying with laws, regulatory controls, regulatory requirements, industry standards, and the controls that we sign with our customers, partners, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so that's what compliance is about. Compliance is simply how to ensure that we are complying with things that we have to comply with. Okay, so these represents the various domains under ISO 27001. Okay, and as you can see, this is comprehensive. Okay, it covers a lot of areas that a lot of other standards do not touch. Okay, so you know, this is really one of the values of ISO 27001 in that it is all encompassing. Okay, it's all encompassing. Okay, you can identify other standards, but the other standards are focused on some specific areas. PCI DSS, for instance, focuses on your network and your card processes, card data related processes. Okay, NIST gives you certain guidelines. NIST does not necessarily advocate a management system. Okay, NIST is a set of requirements. Okay, so common criteria is another standard. Okay, which also focuses on the technology. Okay, but if we are trying to capture, you know, all the areas that information management is impacts on, then we are talking about 27001. Okay, so we have this exercise. So if we were doing a full training, then we would have done an exercise by then. Okay, but just to focus on some of the advantages of ISO 27001, improvements of security, good governance. It creates a framework for good governance. It enhances conformity. So it ensures that activities, processes, controls within the organization conforms to global standards. It supports cost reduction. Okay, one of the things that we need to do as part of implementing controls is a cost-benefit analysis. So that invariably ensures that we are optimizing resources and reducing costs. So it does achieve some level of cost savings. Okay. And then finally, marketing. Okay, it gives you a strong hold on the market, because once you've certified on ISO 27001, you are giving assurance that you've done everything that can be done to secure your environment. You've done your due diligence to secure your environment, okay? And it is something that the market, your customers would want to hear that, okay? To know that, hey, this organization is secure, okay? And I can confidently do business with them. Okay, let's pause a bit for questions. Are there any questions here? Okay, so I have one which was put. How will we differentiate between the ISMS scope and the statement of applicability mentioned in the risk treatment plan? Okay, so the ISMS scope is what the ISMS covers. So we can scope it as head office, the IT department, we can scope it as all our locations in Accra. Okay, that is the scope. Okay, the statement of applicability is the breakdown of the controls which we spoke about, the 114 controls. So the 140 controls, the ones that you have selected which are applicable in your environment would be found in the statement of applicability. Okay, so as I said, if you are doing software development, for instance, then you will need to select the controls that are associated with that activity. Okay, so then it will be found in the statement of applicability. The statement of applicability just indicates what controls have been implemented in this environment. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. In the use of terminologies around ISMS, an ISMS policy document is the same as an information security policy document. Not really, not really. Okay, now the ISMS policy document is a high-level document. That is the policy that establishes the ISMS itself. So we need a policy that says that in this organization, we are going to implement an information security management. That's a policy statement. Okay, high-level policy. Okay. The information security policy documents would outline all the various information security policies. Okay, so these days we are not designing it as a single document. Okay, we prefer to have it broken down. Okay, so the there are various policy documents required. Suffice to say is that from the ISO perspective, anything that needs to be done must be supported by policy. So if we are setting up an ISMS, where's the policy statement? If we are saying that we need to develop policies in all areas, we need a policy statement to say that. Okay, and that's basically what those terminologies mean. Okay, policy statements must be, so everything that is done within an organization must be backed by policy. Okay, and that's it. Any other question? Okay, so let's crack on. We're going to look at fundamental concepts of information security. Okay, so we need to have a good understanding as to what's, the philosophy, the ethos behind information security. Okay. Okay, there's a late question. Are these two documents a key requirement for certification? Well, okay, now we would see this as a minor nonconformity. Okay, not a major nonconformity. If you don't have these policy statements, that mandates you to set up the ISMS. Okay, it's a minor nonconformity, and all the auditor would do is that just have it done. Okay, so it is not going to be grounds for refusal of certification. No. Okay, the auditor will say that, oh, maybe it slipped you, have it done. And these are not difficult documents to do. Okay, so yes, it's a requirement, but it would be a minor non-conformity if it's not there. Okay, information and assets. Okay, information and assets. So what is information? Meaningful data. Okay. Yes. Okay, sorry. I missed another question. I asked that can ISACA product take lead as ISO implementers? Someone asked me this question last week. Okay. Yes and no. Okay, the answer is yes and no. Okay. Now, to be honest, the ISACA certifications are a bit generic in terms that it covers all the things that needs to be done. So for instance, ISO 27001 lead implementer is the same as CISM, okay? It outlines what the management requirements are to manage information security. But ISO 27001 lead implementer is specific to a standard. CISM, ISACA CISM tries to be agnostic, is independent of all standards. So it's trying to stay in the middle, and that's the only difference. Okay. Now, when you are certifying, the certification really requires you to have the lead implementer certification. It requires that some people who are going to be who are going to have roles and responsibilities within the information security management need to be certified. Okay, so that's the only difference. So the ISACA certifications just give some little added background, a broader perspective of the management requirements. Okay, I hope, Nana, I hope I've answered your question. Okay, so information and assets. So information information assets, basically, sometimes we come to it from different perspectives. Okay, sometimes we focus on the fact that we're talking about information only. And then other perspectives are anything to do with data processing. Okay, so from a general perspective, an information security perspective, we are looking at information assets from a holistic perspective, which includes anything to do with data processing. Okay, so the types of assets, the information itself, software, hardware, physical assets, the services, the people, we all include that as information assets, and we all expect that all those things would be protected. Okay. We need to define. Okay. I mentioned earlier that ISO 9000. So ISO 9000 is about quality management. Okay. So ISO 9000 defines the various requirements to ensure that the organization is being managed well. So there's processes, there's proper definitions, there's proper documentation. So ISO 9000 forms the fallback, the fundamentals of all the management systems. So when you are implementing any management system, you implement aspects of 9000. Okay, a lot of aspects of 9000. Okay, so effectively, we keep saying that you effectively implement 9000 alongside. Okay, so we look at all the processes, we look at all the documents, we ensure that proper things are planned. Okay, So this is from the document perspective. The document, information and medium on which it is contained. Specification, document stating requirements. Record, document stating results achieved or providing evidence of activities performed. Okay, so these are vital terminologies that we use as part of the implementation of ISO. So what is information security? Okay, information security determines what information needs to be protected, the reason why it should be protected, how to protect it, and what to protect it from. Okay. By protecting the organization against threats and vulnerabilities, information security reduces the risks and the impact to its assets. Okay. So basically, that's what we're doing with information security. Another definition for information security is the preservation of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Okay. In these days, we also add other properties as authenticity, accountability, non-repudiation, and reliability, you know, as added parameters or properties that are important for us to be able to look at and ensure as part of the requirements for information security. Okay. So we cover all kinds of information. So as I said, when we are talking about information security, we're not talking about just from a electronic perspective. We are talking about it from all forms of information. Okay. All forms of information. Okay. Confidentiality is the property of ensuring that information is not disclosed to unauthorized persons. So only authorized people can have access to confidential information, or to ensure the confidentiality of information. Okay. So one of the ways that we manage confidentiality is through access control. Okay. Cryptography is also something that we use to manage confidentiality. Then integrity, property of accuracy and completeness. Okay, so we need to ensure that information that we are using is accurate, is true, and is complete. Okay, remember that as an organization, this is the information that we are using to form decisions. Okay, so it's important that they are of integrity at all times. Okay, so by integrity, we also need to ensure that information is not modified without proper authorization. Okay, so all the things that we need to be checking. Then availability, property of being accessible and usable on demand by an authorized entity. Okay, we need to make sure that they are available. Information is always available when we need it. Okay, so if for the work that I do, I need to access an information data set, I need to be able to do it. Okay, I need to be able to do it at all times. Okay, because invariably, I would expect that as the person is working, they need that information to make a decision, a business decision. Okay, so it could be a teller, and you need to be able to decide whether you can. you can give somebody you can cash the person's check or anything like that. Okay, so I need to have access, availability to the person's account to be able to do that. Okay. So information must be accessible as required, when required, where required, and to whom required. Okay, so those are the things that we need to look at around accessibility, availability. Now, when we start the risk assessment, we start by looking at vulnerabilities. Okay, we need to identify. Okay, the first thing that we need to identify the assets. Once we've identified the assets, then for each asset, we need to look at what are the vulnerabilities in that asset. Okay, now we define vulnerability as weakness of an asset or control that can be exploited by one or more threats. Okay, so it's a weakness within the asset or the control or the process. Okay, so we need to be able to identify those weaknesses. Okay, so these are some of the examples of vulnerabilities. So vulnerability in a hardware, insufficient maintenance, okay, or lack of periodic replacement scheme. A vulnerability in a software, low or insufficient software testing, okay. Another vulnerability could be complicated user interface, okay. Vulnerability in a network, unprotected communication lines, single point of failure, okay. In personnel, insufficient security training, unsupervised work by outside or cleaning staff, okay. So these are all vulnerabilities, okay. And as you can recognize, vulnerabilities are internal to the asset. They are parts of the inside of the asset, okay. So they are, I also describe vulnerabilities as inherent in the design or the makeup of the asset. Okay. Threats, potential cause of an unwanted incident which can result in harm to a system or organization. A threat has the potential to harm assets such as information, processes, and systems, so therefore the organization as a whole. Okay. Threats can be natural or human origin and can be accidental or deliberate. Both accidental and deliberate threat sources should be identified. Okay. So threats are external. They are outside, they are external to the assets that we are looking at. Okay. So some of the threat types and specific threats. So physical damage, fire, water, natural events, volcanic phenomenon, flood, loss of essential services, failure of air conditioning, loss of power supply, disturbance due to radiation, electromagnetic radiation, and thermal radiation, compromise of information, tampering with hardware, theft of media or documents, technical failures, equipment failure, software malfunction. Okay, so these are all examples of threats which can exploit vulnerabilities. Okay, so what we need to understand is the fact that threats is linked to a specific vulnerability. If the vulnerability is not there, the threat is harmless. Okay, so let us juxtapose some vulnerabilities and threats. Warehouse unprotected and without surveillance. The threat is theft. Okay, if you haven't protected your warehouse, then you are literally inviting thieves to come and collect your things. Okay. Complicated data processing procedures. So the possible threat is data input error by personnel. The vulnerability, no segregation of duties. The threat, fraud, unauthorized use of a system. Okay. Vulnerability, unencrypted data. The threat, information theft. Vulnerability, use of pirated software. The threat, lawsuit or virus. The vulnerability, no review of access rights. The threat, unauthorized access by persons who have left the organization. The vulnerability, no backup procedures. The threat is the loss of information. Okay. So, as I said, there's always a direct relationship between the vulnerability and the threat, always direct. So after we've identified the vulnerabilities and the threats, we need to look at impact. We need to understand what is the impact of when the threat exploits the vulnerability. Okay, and these are some of the examples of the impact from the CIA perspective. So examples of impact on availability: performance degradation, service interruption, unavailability of service, disruption of operations. So that's the impact. That's what we can feel if that's the consequence of if availability is compromised. Then we look at examples of impact on confidentiality: invasion of privacy of users or customers, invasion of privacy of employees, confidential information leak. Okay. And then the examples of impact on integrity: accidental change, deliberate change, incorrect results, incomplete results, or loss of data. Okay. So we need to examine the impact, because the impact would give us an indication of the risk level. Okay. If the impact is high and the likelihood is high, then we have a high risk. Then it's something that we need to rise up on. Okay. So to determine risk, we look at the likelihood times the impact. Likelihood can be translated as probability. How likely is this event? Can this event happen? Okay. So when we are looking at the threats and the vulnerabilities, how likely is it to happen that the threat will exploit the vulnerability, and what will be the impact? That is how we determine risk. Okay. Now, once the risks have been determined, we need to put controls in place. Okay. So there are types of controls: technical controls, legal controls, administrative controls, and managerial controls. Okay. Now, a lot of literature that you read would actually combine managerial and administrative as administrative controls. Most people do not separate managerial controls from administrative. Okay. Administrative controls are process-oriented controls, things that we need to do as part of an admin process. So for example, filling in attendance sheet is an administrative process. Okay, is an administrative control. Okay, a managerial control is any control that involves the appointment of a human being. Okay, so security guards, front desk, they are all managerial controls. When a human being has to perform, then we call it a managerial control. Okay. A legal control is anything to do with a legal process. We view that as a legal control. Okay. So the forensic process, investigations are all legal controls, because once we start a legal process, we need to expect that it might end up in court. Okay, so once we start an investigation, we need to adopt a legal process to the investigation, because it might end up in court, basically. Okay. And then a technical control would be any control that uses technology. Okay, so your access control software aspects is a technical control. The biometric access control is a technical control. Putting a fence around your premises is a technical control. Now let's break down the wording and the documentation within ISO 27001. So as I said, the Annex A, this is what the Annex A contains. Okay, the Annex A provides us with a brief description of the control objective and the controls. Okay, so the control objective is the objective of which we need to meet. Okay, so that is the style in which 27001 is designed. It doesn't give us how to do it. It just tells us what we need to do. Okay, so we call those control objectives or security objectives. Okay, so one here is that to ensure that information receives an appropriate level of protection in accordance with its importance to the organization. Okay, so that's a security objective, control objective. So under that control objective, we will have controls. So that one has three: classification of information, labeling of information, and handling of assets. Okay. Then we have ensure correct and secure operations of information processing facilities. So that is the security objective or the control objective. Then the controls under that: documented operating procedures, change management, capacity management, separation of development, testing, and operational environments. Okay. And the last one is to limit access to information and information processing facilities. Okay. Then we are looking at access control policy and access to networks and network services. Okay. So the language within 27001 Annex A and 27002 follows this format. Okay, it follows this format. It gives you a control objective and the controls under that control objective. So in classifying security controls, we have these three types of security controls. Okay, preventive, detective, and corrective. So preventive control, discourage or prevent the appearance of problems. Detective control, search for, detect, and identify problems. And then corrective control, solve problems found and prevent reoccurrence. Okay, so these are the types, the classification of the controls that we implement. Okay, so these are some of the examples. So under the preventive control, publish an information security policy, have confidentiality agreements signed, hire only qualified personnel, identify risks coming from third parties, segregation of duties. Okay, so those are examples of preventive controls. Detective controls, monitor and review a third-party service. Okay, monitor the resources used by systems. Alarm triggering, review of user access rights, analysis of audit logs. Okay, so those are examples. Okay, and then we have the corrective controls as well. So these are just examples of the types of controls, and the controls that we implement, they fall under one or more than one of these classification of controls. Okay. So this diagram just gives us a relationship between the various things, the various elements, the components that we've mentioned, okay, hitherto from when we started till now. Okay, we've mentioned some of them, and this reflects some of the relationships that we have between each two. Okay, we have another exercise. Okay, another time for questions. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Yes, Ishmael, we will share the webinar. We will share the the recording of what we're doing. Okay, so that will be shared, yes. Okay, any other question? Two, okay, hang on. Okay. In real life, Romeo says, in real life, could one really say we have preventive controls as to our world of risk? Yes, I understand where you're coming from, because we've mentioned that we cannot stop risk. We cannot eliminate risk. Yes, but the perspective that we are going through is the reduction of the risk. Okay, so yes, in implementing a preventive control, we are trying to reduce the risk of the event from happening. Okay, from happening. Okay, a detective control enables us to detect when a risk has happened. Okay, and a corrective control enables us to recover from a risk when it has happened. Okay, this actually translates into one of the principles, the ethos of information security. As I said, we don't seek to stop intruders or fraudsters. We can't stop them. So the focus is to deter. So when you have strong controls in place, it can deter an intruder, somebody who's trying to attempt something, and they might move to another organization that doesn't have stronger controls, okay? If this person is still motivated, then it can delay the person. So we put a strong lock on the door. You know, in them trying to break it, it will take them some time, okay? And hopefully during that time, somebody will come and find them, okay? Then the next requirement is detection. Okay, one of the saddest things about any organization is the fact that you don't have the ability to detect when something has gone wrong. It is a very, very sad situation. Okay, and believe it or not, it happens more often than you expect. I think there was a case that one of the big four had hackers within their system for nearly 6 months. Okay, 6 months, and then the hackers were running around amok in their system and they didn't know. Okay, so detection is very, very important. Okay, and then the last one is recovery. So we acknowledge that something will happen. Okay, we can't stop. So we want to be prepared. So when something happens, we can recover and continue our business. Okay, so in actual fact, trying to catch the person is not really the focus of business continuity. Okay, we want to move on. Okay, we want to move on. So something happens, if there's a hack, yes, the incident management process will try and eradicate the problem and find, but disaster recovery, business continuity is moving ahead. How do we bring back business so that we can continue? Okay. Okay, other questions. In an ISMS project, is it possible to overlook an asset only to find out later that it should have been considered? Oh yes, anything is possible. I mean, yeah, I've had that experience so many times. Okay, so that is why certain documentation, documents have to be continually updated. Okay, because in some organizations, you could be so large that things can miss you. Okay, I remember I had a experience some years back of an organization in Ghana, one of the large organizations in Ghana, which was continually being infected. Okay, so we realized that no, there was an entry point which was not covered. So we were looking at the network map. There's antivirus here, everywhere. So where is the viruses still coming in? Then at some point there was a call from, I think it was from WA. Okay, they had an office in WA, which small office with just a couple of computers. Okay, now the people in WA had problems. Sometimes they had problems in connecting to the wide area network from there for internet. So whenever they had problems, then they used their own internet. Okay, obviously that access didn't go through the firewall, through the corporate firewall. And the fact of the matter was that addition of the machines there was not reflected on the network diagram. So literally they had forgotten that they had computers in their offices there. It just slipped everybody. Okay, so it is important that we regularly, as soon as so this is part of change management. As soon as we are adding more assets, it needs to go through a change management process to enable the right document to be updated. Okay, so yeah, it's possible. It's possible. And once we find it, then we need to do an immediate risk assessment on it. Okay. Okay. So tell me, relating to COVID, presenting COVID, stay at home if I get there or not. Yes. Okay. So yes. So in COVID-19, stay at home is a preventive control. But we can see that it is not 100%. Okay, it will reduce the incidence, the probability of you being infected, but it cannot totally prevent. Okay, another question from Patrick. In disseminating information security policies, should it be copied to all or should it be communicated based on levels in the organization? Okay, policies are based on levels, or for a better word, based on audience. Okay, so we will not necessarily make all available to everybody. No. Okay, we need to make it easily available. So we advise that it should be on the intranet, you know, but depending on the audience, depending on who you are, we need to ensure that the right policies are available to you. So that's why we have a distribution list. On each document, you know, part of the document control requirement is the distribution list, okay, which enables us to identify where documents should go, who is the audience of that document. Okay, then Sandra says that, does it mean ISMS has no issue in handling detected issues? Does it mean that ISMS has no issue in handling detected issues? I'm not sure I understand that question. Now, when you say detected issues, are you talking about incidents? Okay, we detect incidents. Okay, so when anything happens, as I said, we need to have the ability to detect. Once we detect, then we have processes that we need to evoke to manage the detected issue. Okay, so if it's an incident, for instance, if it's an intrusion, okay, and we detect it, then we will use the incident management, incident response procedure to deal with that issue. Okay, the incident response procedure deals with any issue of that nature. Okay, if the issues are detected through an audit, for instance, as well, then it will be seen in the audit report, and then we will declare it, as we say, as a non-conformity, and there will be a corrective action based on that non-conformity. Okay, so detected issues, anything that goes against what we expect, we have procedures and mechanisms to deal with it. Okay. Romeo says that, so in perspective, the goal of control implementation is actually to mitigate impact on an asset or to the organization in a situation of compromise or hack. Yes, yes. So that's why the impact is so important, to understand the impact, okay? And then we looked at impacts on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We need to understand that so that we can mitigate it. Yes. Okay. Good observation. Yes. Any other question? Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Okay. Okay. Can we just take a 10-minute break? That will enable us, all of you, just to visit the men's room, ladies' room. So, okay, can we make it then? Let's make it 15 minutes so that we can, you know, so let's come back at 1:45, okay? Please leave your things connected so that when we come back at 1:45, then we can continue. Okay, so see you back in just 15 minutes. And if you have any question, please just type it in so that when we come back, then I can deal with it. Okay. before we continue, if there are any questions, then we can okay. So let's kick off, okay, and start the second session, okay. Let me stop the video so that you can focus on the, okay, so section 5, initiate the ISMS implementation. Okay, so basically, I mean, this is a project. Okay, it's a project which we need to implement it with project management principles. Okay, there are also some requirements from ISO 9000 perspective that we can adopt and use in implementing the ISMS 27001. Okay, as I said, there's a lot of cross integration, and we don't reinvent the wheel from an ISO implementation perspective. So there's a lot of borrowing from other management systems and other standards. Okay, so once a standard has been defined somewhere, it will not be redefined in another management system. It will just borrow and reference that management system. Okay, so ISO 9000 clause 3.4.2, the project, the activity, and the project management are all outlined, and we use those perspectives in implementing the ISMS. Okay, so in initiating the ISMS, these are the list of activities. We need to define the approach, okay? Define the approach, choose a methodology, okay? And then ensure that whatever you're doing is aligned with best practice, okay? As much as possible, you know, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are, you know, ensuring that tried and tested approaches, tried and tested practices are all being used, implemented within the whole approach of implementing ISO 27001. Okay, so you know, everything that is mentioned here is something that has been done over the years, and once it's been done over the years and it has a guaranteed outcome, we call that a best practice. Okay, so we need to understand the approach. So some of the things that might define the approach is how fast do we want to implement it, okay? So there might be some regulatory pressure, okay? We might be looking at some targeted maturity level of processes or controls, okay? And then we might be looking at the scope or the expectations, okay? So what defines the approach might be dependent on certain factors that the company is experiencing, okay? We also have types of approach. We can actually integrate all the types, okay? So the business approach is looking at it in ensuring that the business, yes, the business is affected, but the business approach ensures that we are taking a lot of the business requirements into consideration. Okay, systems approach might be from a little bit from the system perspective. Systematic approach, you know, which we will be looking at is the fact that there's a predefined projects approach that is systematic. An integrated approach looks at is ensuring that we are not actually creating new processes, okay, but we are adjusting, refining, and embedding security practices within the processes that we have existing. Okay, so we don't add new information security practices. Okay, we integrate. So the processes that we already have there, we ensure that those processes are secure. Okay, that's the integrated approach. And then the iterative approach ensures that all components, everything, the different activities from the different portions of the organizations are all considered, you know, and brought into line with the direction, the strategic direction of the organization, as well as the information security perspective. Okay. So certain recommendations that we need to take cognizance of, okay? Avoid integration of new technologies. So as I said, the ISMS is really a look at the processes, the activities, the behaviors, the management practices, okay? As much as possible, let's not try and integrate new technologies into it, okay? We can view any new technology as an improvement later, okay? But in rolling out, the focus should be on the processes, the management structures, the competence, the individual responsibility, the activities, and things like that, and the various processes that we are in. As I said, we need to integrate the ISMS into existing processes. We don't want to add new processes on top of the processes that we already have. Continual improvement is critical, okay? So when you are certifying, for instance, on your first certification, you realize that the auditor will be quite lenient, okay? It is not difficult to pass your first certification, okay? Because you are now starting, auditor would be quite compromising. In actual fact, if something is not done, something that is required and it is not there, okay, you would be required to develop what we call an action plan, okay? So for example, the placement of your server room is not as expected by ISO 27000. It doesn't fulfill the expectation. For example, if you go and put your server room in the basement, okay, no, not a good thing. But it is very, very likely that the auditor will not raise a major non-conformity. They can say that, look, okay, yes, we've seen this. What are you going to do? And then you come up with an action plan that says that, okay, within a year, we have moved it. The auditor would accept it, okay? And it's as if the year won't come. And that's when the problem starts coming, okay? So it's the subsequent audits that gets tighter and tighter, okay? The subsequent audits. So you promise that you will do it in a year. And when he comes back in a year for the surveillance audit, nothing has been done. Then he will start becoming a little bit hard, okay? But if you started something and then you extend and you give reasons why, valid reasons why it hasn't been done, Luckily, he would. I mean, he would allow it. Okay. So generally, the auditor is with you in the journey in improving. Okay. He or she will only raise issue when there's no signs of improvement. There's no signs of improvement. Okay, so by your second certification, so the certification, the life cycle of a certification is 3 years. Okay, so year 1, you certify. Year 2, first surveillance audit. Year 3, second surveillance audit. Year 4, after year 3, your certificate expires. You have to do a recertification. Okay, so at that point, then things will get tighter. Okay, because you run the ISMS for 3 years. I don't expect you to make some other small mistakes now. And that's the whole point. And that's the whole point about improvement. Okay, there must be evidence of improvement, that you are getting better, that your documentation is getting better. You are fine-tuning your policies. Okay, policies can never be perfect. Okay, the first time you develop policies, there'll be problems with it. As auditors, we know. There'll be problems with it. Okay, sometimes you can be overambitious. Okay, because remember, what you write in your policy is what auditor is going to audit you against. Okay, so if you say that, hey, we are going to have awareness seminars every month. In fact, every month we are going to have it. Every department, every month, we'll have a one-day awareness program. If it's me, I'll tell you that, madam, it's not possible. You can't do it. Okay, we've had instances. Oh no, we can do it. We'll do it. Okay, then you realize that as they go along, they can't do it, but they've put it in the policy, and so it means that once it's in your policy, then you need to adhere to it. So a year later, auditor comes. I'm expecting 12 seminars, awareness seminars. You've done only 4. Now, that is a non-conformity. Okay, it's a non-conformity. And it's a non-conformity created by you. Okay, that's how the policies work. Okay, so at this point, and the fact of the matter is that any time during the year, you can review the policy. Any time during the year, you can review the policy. Like, hey, this every month thing is not working. Let's do it once a quarter. Okay, then you can review and then update the policy and let it reflect that it's done once a quarter. These are the things that we want to see. This is an evidence of improvement, continual improvement, because you've put something down, you realize that you can't do it, and you've come back to doing something that is more effective. Okay, that is continual improvement. Okay, that's the example of continuous improvement. Okay, and that is what the ISMS is all about. Okay, trying to get things right, things that is appropriate and right for your environment. Okay, so 27001 has to be designed to fit your environment. Okay, to fit your environment. Okay, and we can all be happy and satisfied with it. Okay, so those are some of the things that are very, very important to pick up on and to ensure that it is done. Okay, so once there are evidence of improvement, okay, so we had an antivirus and we changed it because we realized that that antivirus was not meeting our requirements. Why? Because we set up a key risk indicator, key performance indicator, and it was not meeting it. Okay? You showed evidence that it was not meeting. It meant that you were measuring it. Okay? Those are the things. Those are the key elements of an ISMS, basically. Okay, and those are the things that the information security manager needs to be focusing on. Okay, firewall, you know, we implemented it, but we realized that it wasn't up to our expectations. Okay, so you know, this and this and this, this is this and this and this is what we did. Excellent. Okay, excellent. And those are the things. Then 4, involve interested parties in the organization. We will look at it shortly. Obtain management support. Okay. Identify and formally appoint an ISMS project manager. Okay, so we need to have a project manager. Invariably, the ISMS project manager, the person who is leading the project in implementing the ISMS is expected to be the information security manager after the implementation is completed. Okay, because you can't go through all those wahala, learn all these things, and then you don't continue managing it. So the expectation is that anybody who is being appointed as the ISMS project manager will become the information security manager. Okay, so this is a methodology. So this is the methodology advocated by PCB, and this is the methodology used to deliver PCB training. Okay, so the methodology is dependent on whoever is implementing. Okay, the standard does not advocate any specific methodology. It's up to you. Okay, what suits your environment and what suits the culture of the organization. Okay, so just to further expand on the methodology, this breaks down all the various activities that has to be done, okay, in implementing, okay. And as you can see, it is aligned to Plan, Do, Check, Act, okay. It's aligned to Plan, Do, Check, Act. So basically, any methodology that will enable you align with Plan, Do, Check, Act, you know, would be best. Okay, again, this is not prescribed, but it would be advisable that you go with that alignment. Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned, the approach should be based on best practices. Okay, so there are various best practices available. ISO has guidelines for quality projects. ISO 1006, okay. ISO 27003 gives a project implementation guideline. PMBOK is also there. So all these are best practices that you can adopt and borrow from to design your methodology, okay. Now, PCB is just in this slide juxtaposing the methodology against the ISO guideline. Okay, so just giving you the assurance that the methodology that is being used for the training is aligned to the guidelines in 27003. Okay, and again, we've mentioned the various documents that are under the 27,000 family. Okay, they're all aligned. Okay. Okay. Any questions? I saw a couple of questions. Okay. Okay. From Kwame, what is the requirement from individual to lead the ISMS project? Do you have to hold an ISO 27000 lead implementer? Yes, yes, we expect that the person, okay, now, if you're doing it yourself, okay, before you certify, the auditor would expect that the person has certified, okay, has trained, maybe not necessarily certified, but has undergone the lead implementer training, okay? If it's a consultant, then the consultant has to be certified, okay? It has to be certified, okay? Can an individual become ISO certified without an organization certifying that person to complete the task? Well, yes, the individual certification is up to you passing the exam and satisfying the professional certification requirements. So any individual can be certified individually. Okay, it's up to you. Okay, so okay, if I understand, yeah, well, you need to pass exam by a certifying body. Okay, you can't certify yourself. You need to pass and sit an exam set by a certifying body. So PCB, BSI, APMG, all these bodies, set the exams, and you can certify through them. So it doesn't matter who you certify through. Okay. Okay, so we are now getting into the meat of certain aspects that we're going to look at before we end today. I think within an hour, we should be over. Okay, so some of these things we've already discussed. Okay, so this is how it reflects. Okay, so we are 1.2. Okay, the requirements that we need to look at the context of the document. Okay, look at the internal and external issues. Okay, clause 4.2. We are looking, as I mentioned, the interested parties. Okay, so under the context of the context documents of the organization, we need to understand the organization, and these are the activities that we are going to look at right now. Okay, so the first one is we need to understand the strategic direction of the organization. Okay, the strategic direction of the organization. So we need to look at the mission, vision, values, objectives, the risk management objectives, and ensure that all these are aligned. Okay, we need to understand where the organization is going. Okay, so with that determination, that ensures that we are aligned. Information security objectives is aligned with the direction of the strategic direction of the organization. Okay, so various tools can be deployed here to do the analysis of the internal and external environment. SWOT, the PEST, all these will enable you to do the analysis properly, okay, and come up with results that would inform the project team. Okay, so some of the things that we're looking, organizational structure. We need to look at the organizational chart. Okay, we need to understand who are the key players within the organization. Okay, there are certain things that we need to understand. The strategy committee, who sets the strategic direction? We need to understand that. The steering, okay, who coordinates and manages the operations, okay? You know, some organizations have CEO, COO, some have head of operations, some have deputy MDs. So it's all different. Every organization have their different organizational structure. That needs to be understood. Okay, that needs to be understood to enable proper alignment of the ISMS. Okay. The internal context. Okay, we've looked at, as I said, hang on a second. Some of the internal concepts we discussed: the organization structure, the policies, objectives, the types of applications that you have, both the decision-making processes, both formal and informal. What relationships do you have? What standards, guidelines, methodologies has the organization already adopted? Okay, and then what kind of contractual relationships do you already have as an organization? Okay. I mentioned about the processes, the key organizational processes. We need to be able to identify them. Now, there's the important key is a keyword. Okay, when we are not looking to do everything. We need to focus on the most important, okay? So maybe our canteen management process will not be key, okay? So in your organization, the organization provides food for the staff, and you have a process of what time people go so that there's no big queue. So there's that process. It's a process, but we might not, capture it on the onset. Okay, focus on the key assets, key processes. Okay, the assets is important that the asset inventory is holistic as much as possible. Okay, you need to be able to capture all assets. But in the risk assessment, we are looking at key. So the business impact analysis can help us identify the key processes and the key dependencies within those key processes. And it will enable the process of identifying the top 20% of the activities. Okay, so it's important that we have those perspectives, in understanding the organization. Okay, so we've gone through this, the different assets, hardware, software, network, the sites, So as I said, we need to be as holistic as possible in gathering all the assets as much as possible. Okay, these are the interested parties. So as I said, an interested party, or what others might call the stakeholders, is anybody, any person or organization or entity that is impacted by anything that happens to the organization in question. So your interested parties, it starts from the board of directors, the management teams, your employees, and your unions. Okay, the next level could be your financial institutions, who your bankers are, who your insurance companies are, and stuff like that. Your providers, your suppliers, your customers, other interest groups. Interest groups could be professional associations that you work with, any other residents associations, area associations. All these are people that we work with. Okay, then shareholders, the general public, media, and legislators. Okay. So basically, we need to identify all entities that have some relationship with you. So even your neighbors are interested parties, okay? Because if anything happens, if you have a fire in your thing, for instance, your neighbor can be affected. So it is in his interest to know what are your protective measures that you have. Similarly, you are also, a neighbor, okay? So we need to identify these interested parties. We need to identify their expectations to us. What are their expectations? What are they interested in? Okay, so shareholders, obviously, they are interested in getting good returns. Okay, that's what the shareholders want. Okay, unions are interested in showing that your employees are being well managed, well kept, and working hard and being paid well. Okay, so interested parties are very critical to the success of the ISMS. Okay, because at the end of the day as well, when something happens, we need to communicate with the interested party. Now, the nature and the medium and mode of communication should be determined when we are planning and implementing the ISMS. Okay, we need to know how we're going to interact with them. We need to know that if we have, because each interested party, so we are a bank and we've had, our banking software is down. The messaging that we will send might not be, and definitely should not be, the same. Okay, so depending on the interested party and depending on their interests, their expectations, you will tailor the message to them accordingly. Okay, so that's how important interested parties are. The other thing that interested parties give you is feedback. We need to ensure that there are proper channels of delivering feedback from interested parties to the ISMS management. Okay, because based on some of the feedback, it will formulate some of the documentations that we have, the policies and things like that. It will be based on some of the feedback that we get. So again, these are some of the things that the auditors will ask for. Okay, are you gathering feedback? Because if you're not gathering opinions of people who matter, who are impacted by your organization, then you are not really reflecting. You're not gathering good opportunities for improvement around your ISMS. Okay. So, as I said, we need to identify their requirements and expectations. We need to validate those requirements and expectations. And then we need to define their roles and responsibilities. Okay. So we need to be able to document all these things properly. Okay, identify their requirements, expectations, validate those requirements and expectations, and then define their roles and responsibilities of the interested parties. Okay. Now we will realize that some of the interested parties are positively influenced and negatively influenced by implementation of ISO 27001. One of the interested parties that are negatively implemented is HR. Okay, the impact on HR is huge. It's huge. Okay, and as I said from the beginning, once we understand the perspective that information security is not a technology issue, it's a people issue, it's a social issue, then you can understand why HR is so impacted. And from my experience, the change that is required within HR has to be done gradually. It is really difficult for them to be able to move. I mean, some of the things that we expect them to be doing would be like background checks. Okay, background checks can be an exhausting, tedious process. Okay, so in other jurisdictions in North America and in Europe, you will realize that background checks is outsourced. Okay, it is difficult to dedicate a staff member to be responsible for background checks. Okay, it is. I mean, it's a very difficult task. Okay, so in an organization that you are, I mean, there's a lot of coming and goings, then it becomes something that might not be sustainable. Okay, and to be honest, in our environment in this country as well, background checks are difficult. Okay, because police checks, for instance, are not reliable. Okay, we can't really put any reliability on police reports that are given. Okay, so I mean, there are other things that we need to compensate by being more serious on. Okay, in trying to profile the person and make the decision whether this person is of the right moral character that we want to be employed in our organization. Okay, so HR is always on the heavy side of the things that they need to do. Okay, then positively influence customers are always, they, after you implement ISO 27001, you realize that customers are happier. The interaction with them is better. They realize a change. They can have more confidence, more trust. So they are more comfortable in doing business with the organization. Okay, and seriously, it brings a very, very positive impact to them. Okay, so this matrix just gives us a view of how we are managing interested parties. Okay, so if you look at the bottom column, the interest, if it's high, okay, then the interest is high, then there are people who we need to keep regularly informed. Okay, so the high could be your shareholders, your customers. Okay, those people have high interest in your and then the other is the power, so authority. Okay, so you need to satisfy them, so unions, regulator. Okay, so when they meet in the middle, then you realize that those are the people that you need to manage closely. You need to keep them informed. You need to keep them satisfied. Okay, then it gives you a lot. Okay. Then we need to identify business requirements. Okay. The main business requirements are derived from these 4 areas. Number 1, your legal and regulatory requirements. Okay, your laws and the regulations. You can't go against them. You need to know them, understand them. Okay, those things should be reflected in your policies. Okay, you cannot have a policy that goes against your laws and regulatory provisions. Doesn't make sense. Okay. The next thing is standards. Okay, each industry sector might have some standards that they need to adhere to. The best practices, standards within that industry. You need to know them and adhere to them. Okay, your internal policies. Okay, your internal expectations. Okay, And then the last one is the market, is your contractual obligations that you have. Contracts that you have signed with other partners, your customers, your service recipients, okay? You have signed a contract. So you need to ensure that your policies and your processes enables you to fulfill those contracts, okay? Not that you have a policy that goes against the grain of what you've promised to a customer, okay? Puts yourself into trouble, okay? Okay, so legal compliance, we need to comply with the applicable laws, okay? These are some of the typical laws, and it will surprise you to see that in Ghana, we have all these laws, okay? Data protection, privacy. Privacy is embedded in data protection in Ghana. Computer crimes, digital signatures, they're all under Electronic Transactions Act. Intellectual property, we have the copyright. Electronic payments, it was under initially under Electronic Transaction Act. Now we have a full-fledged Payments Act, okay? Records management is also, so, I mean, in terms of our laws in Ghana, we are quite well set up, very well set up. We have the laws, okay? It's just the enforcement, it's the compliance, it's the adherence to the laws that we have problems with. It's the enforcement, okay? The right bodies are not enforcing those laws, okay? Once they are enforced, you will see a lot of order and a lot of structure coming within the business world within Ghana. Okay. So these are examples of ISMS objectives. Okay. So as I said, we need to identify our objectives. Why are we doing it? These objectives need to be stated in the context document. Okay. So it could be that we want improved risk management. It could be that we want effective information security management. It could be that we want competitive advantage. Okay. So these could be our management's objectives in implementing it. These must be documented, put as part of the context document, okay? And the whole ISMS is measured against it, okay? So as the auditor as well, when the auditor is auditing, coming for your surveillance audits, these are some of the things that they look at, okay? So you said you want to gain competitive edge. Have you measured and seen whether by implementing your ISO 27001, you've moved ahead in getting a better competitive advantage, okay? It's part of the things that you need to show evidence of having done, okay? So these are some other examples, okay? Ensure compliance with legal, regulatory, contractual obligations, demonstrate due diligence, create an environment of internal control, inspire confidence in stakeholders of the organization, validate compliance with specific legal, contractual, or regulatory constraints, protecting critical assets of the organization, structuring effective management of information security according to best practices, improving the response to information security incidents, reduce costs related to information security incidents, facilitate business continuity, ensure compliance of information security for a project delivering a service or a product. Okay, so these are different objectives that as an organization, you know, can be the reason in which we want to implement ISMS. Okay. In looking at the second point, demonstrate due diligence, it's very interesting. Okay, I don't know whether we all realize that in the Data Protection Act 2012, one of the penalties in it is a prison sentence, maximum 6 months in prison. Okay, for violation of data protection. Okay, I think the maximum is 250,000 Ghana cedis and or 6 months in jail as a maximum. Okay, now one of the reasons why a jail term might be imposed is the fact that the court is not seeing any due diligence from the organization side, that you haven't done any effort to put in any security measures. You know, you haven't done any security, nothing. I will jail you, okay? Because it's a reflection of irresponsibility. You are running a business and you are not protecting the information within the organization. Then this is irresponsible behavior. Okay, that is the thinking. That is the ethos behind it. Okay, so implementing an ISO 27001, implementing ISMS demonstrates due diligence. Because, as I said, you can't stop it. Something will happen. But the point is, at least I've done something. We've done something. We've demonstrated that we've taken it serious. However, we know that cannot eliminate risk. So there's still the residual risk of something happening. And it has happened, you know, and you've taken us to court. Okay, so likely is what they'll do is that they'll just fine you and not jail somebody. Okay, so it's a demonstration of due diligence. Okay, and as I said, as I'm saying, it can save somebody from going to Sawam. Okay. We need to determine the preliminary scope of the ISMS. Okay. Sorry. Let me just go back. We need to determine the scope of the ISMS. Okay. So the scope could be just the IT department. It could be head office. It could be head office and all the head office annex. It could be all the offices in Accra. It could be the whole organization. Okay. It depends on what scope that the organization decides to do. Okay. Now, it is advised that when you are now starting, you do not scope the whole organization. Okay. I am presupposing. I mean that is if it's a large organization, you have branches all over and things like that. Okay, it's a multi-location organization. If you are one location organization, then you know it is less arduous. But if you are multi-location, you might want to limit the scope for the initial audit. Okay, the initial certification, and then gradually include the other areas in every succeeding year. It's allowed. Okay, it's allowed. Okay, and it's strongly advised if it's a large organization to do that approach. So what we do normally is that the implementation, you will implement the whole organization. But when it comes to the certification audit, then you scope. Okay, then you have a higher chance of not getting things wrong. Okay, then subsequently you can include other areas after, during e-surveillance audit and things like that. Okay. That also demonstrates that the organization has a focus on improvement. Okay, so we recognize that we are taking baby steps, and we want to improve in the management of the controls and the processes as we go along year by year. It's a very good sign. Okay, any questions? I think there were a few questions that came up. Okay, can one, Agbenya said, can one include the ISMS policy statement in the IS policy document? Yes, that is not an issue at all. You know, that's not an issue. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you structure it, yes, but that's not an issue. Yes, you can do that. Yes, we will share, Renee, we will share the whole recording. Okay, it will be uploaded to our YouTube and available on our website for you to look at. Okay. Okay. Any other question? Then we can go on to the last area before we close this session. Okay. So analyze the existing system. Okay. So after we've understood the organization, we need to analyze the existing system. Okay, we call that the gap analysis. Okay, we need to understand where you are now and what needs to be done to get you to the desired state. Okay, so that comes in trying to determine the maturity level of the organization. Okay, so the activities are determine the current state, conduct the gap analysis, establish targets, and publish the gap analysis report. Okay, so we need to go through a gap analysis exercise. Okay. So the approach is observations, questionnaires, interviews, engagements with business unit heads, various function leaders, review documentation, and then scan tools, So we conduct interviews, and that's one of the best ways, talking to all the relevant departmental heads to understand what they do and what needs to be done. Okay, so we can conduct the interviews as individuals or as a group. Both are good. Okay, you can have the individual, maybe the business unit head, and then engage the team, to also let them understand so team, group discussions, is can be very, very revealing. Okay. We can apply questionnaires, which would, bring people to expose certain things and bring a better understanding of the processes. Okay. So if you notice, the questions are mainly around the processes. Okay. Because we are trying to identify how systems work, how processes work, how the organization operates, and that is based on its processes. Okay. So then there's that comparison. Okay. As I said, with the current state and the desired state. Okay. And then one of the standards that we use is the CMM, which is related to ISO 21827. Okay, CMM is Capability Maturity Model. Okay, And this is what it looks like, okay? So the capability maturity model indicates the maturity of your processes and your activities. Okay, so it starts at 0, non-existent. So it means that the process might be non-existent and all the way to optimized. Okay, most companies that I have encountered in Ghana are around 2.5. Okay, so this is what it means. 0, non-existent, total absence of identifiable processes. Okay, then initial, processes are implemented case by case without any method. Okay, so today you do it this way, tomorrow you do it this way, the next day you do it another way. There's no method, there's no standard. Okay, it just depends who you ask to do it. They will do it their own way. Okay. Then 2, managed non-standard processes in place. Okay. So sometimes when we say non-standard, we say that we mean that there's some level of conformity, small, but it's not documented. Okay, so we know, for instance, that if when we are issuing out an invoice, these are the steps that we do. Okay, so kind of, even though it's not documented, people have a good idea, that's how we do it. Okay, and then they follow it. We don't call that as a standard process. It's not standardized. Okay, so because it's not documented. Okay, so when you have processes are documented and communicated, that is defined. Okay, and that is, a key target, initial key target. Okay, the next level is processes are monitored and measured. Okay, so that is what you need to achieve after you finish your implementation. And all processes are being monitored and then they're being measured. So for each process, there's a KPI that we use to measure the process, and we ensure that we are reporting on the maturity of the process. Okay, and then 5 is optimized. So when there's top maturity. Okay, so this is the CMM, the capability maturity model, and it reflects the way that we describes the way that we expect the processes to be, how they are, how they exist, and how they're being used within the organization. Okay. So as part of the gap analysis report, okay, we look at the requirements, we describe the current situational, we indicate the current maturity level, and then we indicate the target maturity level. Okay. We can also come up with what the gap is, describe the gap, what needs to be done to be able to bridge the gap between the 3 and the 4. Okay. And then we also identify who is responsible for implementing the gap. Okay. So another example. Okay. So the requirements is the requirement from ISO 27001. It's a requirement, written requirement, what should be in place. And then we juxtapose it to the description of the actual situation. Okay. So this is the table of contents of a gap analysis report. How it should be structured. Okay. This is also a graphical representation of what. So we also produce a report, you know, as red, yellow, green to indicate, you know, a high level of non-conformity or, you know, close. Okay, just to to give management an easier way of understanding and assimilating the information that they were given earlier. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of the day. Are there any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Are there any questions? Are there any questions that we can discuss? Any discussion points? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had an interesting, elevating time for you to understand some of the things that are required under ISO 27001 and required under effective information security management. Okay. So basically, as I said, our objective in this free training is also to expose you to Innovare's online training. Okay, we feel that you know, looking at the current environment that we are in, it's something that needs to be looked at. Okay, it's something that needs to be examined well. So because we need to be able to continue delivering training. Okay, so I hope that you have understood and you know, if there's anything that we can also do to improve it, the online virtual delivery, you know, we would be open to let us know. Okay. Okay. So if there aren't any questions, then we can start to close up. We have a webinar. Hang on, let me share. Okay. Oh, okay. There are some. Okay. Okay. So when is the next ISO 27000K training? We will communicate it to you, but I think it's in 3 weeks. We are yet to schedule the training itself. Okay. Okay, we'd like to be trying. Thank you so much. So as I said, we will communicate to you. Can one train virtually with regards to your future webinars? Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. Yes. So that is the plan. Because to accommodate requirements from our customers and people like you, we want to be able to fit into your schedule and fit into the current environment that we have. So yes, we are coming up with more and more virtual training. Okay. When's the next? Yes, we will communicate the date for the next training. Okay. Thanks a lot from Philip. Okay, welcome. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Okay. I have the dates. My team has just sent me. So the next date for the to 20th June. It's going to run on May to 20th June. Okay. So, but again, since we have your details, those would be sent to you. How many trainings before you can take the exam? The lead implementer training is 5 days. Okay, it's a 5-day training. Okay, after that, then when to take the exam is up to you. Okay, when to take the exam is up to you. Okay, okay. So I think yes, we will share the screen. Yeah, please go ahead and share the screen so that we have some upcoming webinars that we would like you to be part of. Yeah. So the next training is 23rd May to 20th June. As I said, those are Saturday. Okay. Yes, Romeo. Yes. Innovare offers training for ISO certification. So we do both the individual training as well as the the company-wide implementation towards certification. Okay, so we certify individuals. Yes, yes, we provide the training to be able to certify individuals. Any other questions whilst my team put up the flyer for the next training when it's coming up? So are there any more questions? Okay, could one get trained by your company for okay, so Romeo, I think our business development team would get in touch with you because they are also online. Okay. Any certificate of participation for your webinars? Yes. So if you require evidence of CPE points, yes, we can give. So you need to request for it, and then we will send you a certificate giving you one CPE. For this one, I think depending, I think you will get 4 CPEs. Okay, for today's training, you get 4 CPEs. So yes, we do give certification of participation of the webinars. So the next training, as I said, is, so all the details are there. You can call in or from the chats, our team will be in touch with you, be able to engage with you and respond to your requirements. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attendance. I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to you attending our full training. Okay, so as I said, this is just one training. We treated it as an introduction. So as you see, there were exercises that we couldn't do. So during the proper training, we will be doing all the exercises, and it's quite intensive. As I say, it's 5 days. It's quite intensive, but you will enjoy it. Trust me, you will really enjoy it. If you enjoy just this one, then you will really enjoy and it will open your eyes. Okay, it will open your eyes, yeah, and to a lot of things that you need to do. Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much. And I hope to engage with you again soon. Okay. So if you have any still comments, the meeting will still be open for a bit, so you can drop any requests, anything that you want our business development team to respond to, anything at all, and they will respond to you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much and have a good afternoon.